like outside of the immigration, it's like, more recently has been like equality of sex, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
in my opinion, it's like the best possible candidate should be chosen for the job, not because you're a woman or because you're a man. It's just the best candidate. So whether it is a man or not, that should be the best candidate. And same goes for the immigration.
And the best candidate can have lots of different skills and knowledge, and like it's hard for us just to choose a candidate because of one thing. Yes, they might not have that knowledge, but they tend to be way more committed because they're here with their family. They moved all the way from their country. They wanted to make it happen, and they want that experience to last, most of it. But I understand your point of view because the employer needs to spend more time training.
It also depends on the moment. Like if it's burning right now, and I have a key position, then I need somebody
right now, running, and then yes.
Or do I have the luxury of teaching someone? I always choose teaching someone because, as being a manager, I see myself like I think my main goal is to grow people, and I love doing that. And I had a certain employee that I actually hired in 3 different positions in 2 different companies. So I like to give opportunities, but at the same time, if that's a key position, and I need somebody that is skilled for that position, then yes, I will try to choose the candidate that's able to do the role.
Easier to get. Yeah, exactly.
And again, I'm gonna see also my own interest.
No, of course.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like you want to be fair, but at the same time, you want to choose
I think the challenge there is not to keep this type of mindset I guess, continuous thing. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, yes, I get that, depending on the time, depending on the urgency of the need, yes, let's get that one that's easier, but which is fine. But at the same time, I guess the challenge there is not to keep doing it because of it, because then you're going to get into a habit of that. I'm going to look at the name, I'm going to look at the background, and then I'm going to pick and choose just based on that thing I want, and that, that skill that's going to be faster to learn or to keep the employee, right?
Yeah.
And that's why HR is here.
To
fight with hiring managers.
That's why managers aren't HR.
Exactly.
That's why logistics
and that's my forever fight.
Yeah.
So,
but coming back to, you said something about the name. So I always looked on LinkedIn and I tried to educate myself. And at one point there was a post on LinkedIn about Mexican
names
individual that was trying to find a job in the U.S. So he's saying, okay, my name is Juan Mendez, and I applied for so many jobs and nobody was calling me for an interview, up to 1,000 jobs. And then I changed my name to John. So as soon as I changed my name to John, I got called for interviews. And based on that, like, my name is Aurelian Nicolae.
And
so
that's
based
a fact.
on that, I used Nicolae to change it to Nick, so I can make it more Canadian. And it happened during my tenure in the Irving companies. One of the managers that hired me from inside the company, she was extremely nervous when she called me for an interview. And I went in, I presented myself as Nick, and she was like, thank God, because I didn't know how to pronounce the name. But on that LinkedIn post, what kind of caught my eye was the fact that there were a lot of HR professionals that were saying, a lot of time I don't call people for interviews, even if they are qualified, because I'm so embarrassed that I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Don't need to pronounce a name. Hi, I got your email or resume. How do you pronounce your name? That's what I ask, right? How do you pronounce your name? So
again,
then you have the opportunity.
Why we're not HR?
Exactly.
But on that post on LinkedIn, there were a lot of
people
HR,
that were answering it.
And I was looking at it. Okay, so if I want to improve my chances, I was like, I'm gonna just go by Nick, and I'm not gonna use my legal name because Nick is gonna make my life easier. And actually, that was the fact, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's like the research nowadays show us that it's way people that have names that are English or easier to pronounce are more likely to get a phone call. It's not it's not one or two examples. This is reality. Like if you talk to HR and if you talk to candidates as well, they literally need to change or change anything on their resume or names or whatever just to catch HR eyes and have that opportunity, which is sad because at the same time, like, why would I need to change my name to be able to get? So the perfect world for HR, for example, at least for me, would be to get resumes without names. Would you get, you as a hiring manager, what do you get? Let's say you have 3 resumes with no names. Yes, maybe a location but the background and experience and everything, but no names. Would you be, I don't know, like, interested, or how would you look? Because
I think my bias is also based on names, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's based on names.
Yeah.
Well, and humans are like conditioned to like associate, right?
Exactly.
So there's like an association that you make as soon as someone comes into the room. There's something like for me, like, I've got tattoos, so there's a quick association that people are making as soon as I walk into a room. Is it true or not? That's for me to present myself and to make an impression for them to decide.
Yeah.
The name will do that on people.
It's
Right?
bias. When you look at something, right now I made some choices. Yes, like on the last position that I hired, I look at some resumes and I just remove it based on names. And actually, I was focusing on the position that I hired because, again, it was some kind of a key position, and I needed somebody to hit the ground running, and I looked for Canadian names.
Which is common. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's very common because, again, easier route, right? Managers and employers I don't know if like is the word, but to get the easier route is always easier.
Right.
And it's not like I'm in logistics, so I want to spend my time in logistics.
Exactly.
I dread having to. It happened in the past. I called 20 people. From those 20 people, let's say 8 answered the phone.
Yeah.
I booked 5 interviews. 1 shows up. So I wasted, let's say, 4 hours. Just on that.
Yeah.
So it's clear that I lead a team of close to 40 people, so I'm always hiring 1 or 2 people. So if I'm wasting 4 hours a day for each position, at one point, that redundancy, I'm like, I'm going to choose the easiest.
That's why me as a recruiter, like to on the recruitment process and try to get that phone calls and do that piece of it, because if just exactly what you're saying, managers are worried about operation, which is, it's their job, which is fine. So recruiting, or the recruitment team, or whoever's doing the recruiting, I always like, in all my past employer experience and professional experience, I like to do that piece, because we're trained, or HR or recruitment team needs to have that mindset that as I guess we need to fight the bias, right? But that comes mostly from the HR,
that you have the education and the test skills.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yes,
and
exactly.
I have to do it because, again, we as a company where we are right now, we're at a point where we're going. So we're going to need to figure out some things internally. And right now, probably we need to expand our HR department. But that, I kind of own part of that.
Right.
But because I don't have the right skills, I probably might overlook some good candidates.
Yeah.
And I realize that.
And that happens. Yeah, that happens. And again, like my experience, most of the hiring managers, when I started, especially here in Moncton, was that they used to do a lot of the recruiting piece. And I found that created a lot of bias, a lot of issues and challenge, even for the recruitment team, but for the candidate as well. I had to challenge hiring managers on, like, okay, this person doesn't have a Canadian experience. Let's go back to Canadian experience. But however, they have this and this and this and this. And we've had experiences here that you chose that candidate with the Canadian experience over the one that didn't have, and it didn't last. And so things that I guess educate the hiring managers on points that it's not their job or it's not their skills to have, because again, they're worried about operation. Most of the time, human resources is human. Like, we have to talk about and worry about the human part of it, right? So that's I guess, if you want to summarize what's human resources, at least for me, is the human part of the business, period. Everything in terms of human is for the human resources, and recruitment is one of the things that is, I guess, the most again, it's my passion. So I love recruiting, and I'm always kind of lean towards recruiting, but things that the hiring manager don't really realize, because they just want someone to do the job. That's the only thing the hiring manager, of course, do the job well. But there's a lot behind that and after that as well, that the human resources professional is at least skilled, or they need to be to worry and work together with the operation team and the hiring manager
I'm gonna be honest,
get that done.
Inside some of the people that I hired in the past, after I hired them and they failed, taking a step back and just thinking about it, I was like, well, there were some signs, but like as a logistic manager, I was like, you seen that in those 5 minutes to 10 to half an hour that you meet a person, I think he can do the job. And you're like, you're creating that, okay, I need him and he's good enough. But then in hindsight, when you look at it, you're like, there were some signs. And because, again, I don't have the soft skills, to be honest. Like, and I'm good with people, but in the recruiting part, that's not my specialty. There's signs that as a professional, you recognize that, like, me with my logistical background and all the skills that I have doesn't really apply that. And it happens that I will hire probably a wrong candidate.
And again, like, it's all about partnership, right? Human resources needs to partner with the operation and the hiring manager, because some of the I guess requirements or some of the responsibility about the job, the recruiter doesn't know fully.
Right.
So it's kind of both ways. Like, you have to partner really, and kind of give up a little bit your knowledge to actually listen to the hiring manager, and then kind of accept things that he sees or they see about a candidate experience that we don't, because we tend to see more of the soft skills or the background, or try to help the managers with not having that bias, right, all the time. So that's really what we look for. But the technical skills and like the professional, like the background is really the hiring manager. Like, we need to depend on them as well. So it's really a teamwork that, things get done.
Do you find a lot of the times, like, I'm just thinking about how your experience is, maybe in my mind, bringing up kind of a light bulb moment, is like, is it maybe that there's not enough accountability or like behavioral correction between the hiring manager and someone like yourself, and we're always looking at, well, okay, you hired the wrong person, let's look for another person. Oh, you hired the wrong person, you're looking for another. Because I think, like, sometimes, like, well, okay, no, maybe you're the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of fight.
I'll tell you, like, in my personal opinion and in my experience, I suck at hiring. I probably don't look at the right things. I think I kind of probably navigate towards some of the things you say, where it's like, just like, yeah, it looks like they can do these things. It looks like, okay, that experience there and all that. But oftentimes it's like I maybe neglect some of the softer skills or some of the things that maybe are more important, that are based on their character and are not things that they've developed through experience of being in that role, right? And for me, that's the difficult part, because I think I also I don't let go of the control when I give the responsibility, and then you're just like you're continuing to kind of do the job for them, or if they do something wrong, well, you give them the solution, right? And that's what I've really tried to focus on, right? Because I think if I'm going to be of service to employees, or if at least I've given the responsibility to be of service to employees, I need to empower them to do those responsibilities, not do them for them or provide the solutions, because then they're always going to come back to me, right?
Yeah.
So
in the last 6 months, I had a bit of change in mentality because I'm a go person.
Yep.
And I like to get things done, and I focus on what qualities do we need to get the job done, and always pushing and pushing. And unfortunately, one of my supervisor got to a point where he was burnt out. I kind of realized not quite in time. I came up with a plan to help him out, but he left the company, and I hired him. And at the time that I hired him, he was good enough to do the job. By the time that he left, he was not engaged anymore.
Yeah.
So, and with my tenure at the company here, I realized there were some people under my leadership that at one point they were considered good employees, and they either failed on their own, and I had to let them go, or they silently quit.
Yeah.
So like that kind of made me take a step back and say, okay, so I think I'm making the assumption that everybody is like me, so that's that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So then
But you don't think this is a hiring problem, do you?
No, I don't. It might be, but also, I think also the focus. I focused always on the strength of the people,
On the task.
But I never focus on their shortcomings.
Right.
So I think I'm focusing with the leaders that I have right now in my team. So I have 4 key players. My goal for the next year is to help them overcome their shortcomings.
Right.
I know that they have their strengths, and I'm gonna take advantage of those. But also, like in my mind right now, I'm doing weekly meetings with those 4 key people,
Right.
and try to be
Check
really
in.
engaged and check on them.
Yeah.
And you know how you
Which
judge
is really important.
and you judge a character, and I know where there's shortcomings, and I know where I have to keep them in check. So I'm trying to do that to make sure that I'm doing everything on my end to help them succeed. Because personally, I took it as a failure. When one of my employees fails and leaves the company, that means that I did
Which is a good leader skills. Like that feeling you have.
Yeah.
I know it's not good,
yeah.
but it's a good. I guess when you're a leader, you're not only a boss. The forever fight about boss and leader. When you're a leader, it's when you see your employee failing that you feel like you're failing as well, because at some point you failed. Like it something happened that you missed, or it's not always about the employee. I guess hiring, it's always a risk.
It is, yeah.
Right? You can't guarantee that someone 100% will be the best employee ever. Like you can't. However, there's lots of tools and ways to reduce that risk at the hiring stage. But the after, right, maintaining or retaining that employee is also a huge challenge. And sometimes that fell over to the hiring manager. Like that responsibility, the hiring manager usually thinks, okay, this is my responsibility, myself and only, which is not true. Like it's a company effort. Right. It has to be a company effort, because you need to train the employee. You need to make sure that they're being heard. You need to check on them. Like there's lots of things that. And again, hiring managers are worried about tasks, and they're worried about operation, because that's what their job is. Like there's nothing wrong about that. So again, like recruiting, it has to be a partnership with training, with retention, with all of that, because at the same time, if you don't do that, then you're going to think about, okay, maybe I did something wrong when we hired, like something like something was missing and I didn't pick, or I didn't realize.
Right.
But I don't think that's the issue. Like most of the time, I think is the retention that the company doesn't really, I don't know, like the company doesn't really take that serious.
Yeah.
It's always easier to hire or fun to hire than to try to keep an employee. Like that's a fact.
Yeah.
And I realized like the mentality was like, in the companies that I've been through, you fire someone because you fail at his job, and your mentality is like, he's not good enough, so I'm going to replace him.
Exactly.
And then if that person fails to, that person is also not good enough. So you, let's say, end up in 5 years hiring 5 different people.
Yeah.
And if you don't take the step back and look at the processes, at the workload, at everything that person has, if a lot of people fail in the same job, that means clearly there's something probably wrong with the job or with the company.
Yeah.
But we tend to blame it on the employees.
We tend to, 100%. Yes.
But in the recruiting process, we chose that person at one point thinking,
because of a reason.
Yes, he or she is the right person to do the job. But then we end up to the point where we're getting to the point where like they are not the person. So what happened in between those two?
Yeah.
Probably it's us, but we don't really.
No.
You don't want to like.
You don't take the blame.
You don't have to take the blame. Like,
Yeah.
like you want to be held accountable. At the end of the day, you don't want to find yourself guilty about those things.
No.
But I think it's. I told you, my mindset right now is focusing how can I help people succeed.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing.
I think that's because it personally hurt me because I felt like that person that left the company, he could have succeeded. Before that, there were 2 or 3 employees that I inherited from the people before me, but they were presented to me like these are highly capable people, and they were, but they were to the point where they were not efficient anymore. So
something happened along the way there.
But the culture and the company and we as leaders failed those people. So I think, as you said, retaining, I think that's the biggest challenge.
Retention is the biggest challenge. And especially, I guess, the market changes, right? So maybe back when you got here, well, I'm in Moncton for 5 years now, I think. And when I first started working in HR here, I saw a lot of challenges to hire certain type of roles. Whereas today, I don't find that same challenge for that certain type of roles because of immigration, because of people coming from another province to New Brunswick, but it's not the same. And people always tend to think about hiring. And when you feel like, oh, it's gonna be hard to find someone or replace someone, and the HR have that conversation with the hiring manager before that person quit or leave for whatever reason, it's just hard for them to realize that, okay, we need to do something. Because it's always easier. No, let's try to get someone better or replace that. I'm sure there's someone out there that can do the job.
My goal by the end of the year, like I told my supervisor right now, is not to lose anybody in the next 6 months.
That's amazing.
So that's
ambitious.
Like
ambitious. Especially with retail, right?
I'm more on the LBM part.
Okay.
The lumber and the delivery team. And we have a good core team, but we have, let's say, maybe a 10 to 20% that they always change. But I think right now I'm happy with the team that I have, and I told you, like, I think this is a measure for success. If we're able to keep the same team for 6 months, and that's so mind blowing. Because when I came here, when I left, like, first of all, I'm coming from a former communist country where people were finishing high school or university, getting a job, and the same place they would retire. So they would stay extremely stable. When then I come here, I was hired by the Irving companies, and there you have people the same, 30 years with the company, 25.
Yeah, true.
But in these 10 years and with COVID, right now, probably
everything changed.
Average probably is like 1 to 2 years in a position. So to have employees more than 5 years right now, I think it's a great attachment for a good company.
Especially with immigrants, especially with newcomers, when they get here in Canada, there's a lot of challenges at first, but I feel like maybe the one that I feel like it's the strongest is the confidence, like, because of so many reasons. Maybe language, maybe they don't have that Canadian experience, or they're not confident enough that they can do the job, blah blah blah. So they start in entry level positions, right? So they're not going to stay. They're not going to stay for like 2 years in the state. Like, they can, but most of newcomers, they want to start somewhere and then grow and then or find another job, a different job, but they usually start at an entry level position.
So the first job at, like, I'm gonna say again, the Irving company. So like you are obligated to stay 1 year in a position before you're allowed to apply inside the company again. So I stayed 1 year, and I think it took me another year and a half until I was given another opportunity.
Right.
And I think I applied around, and I'm not exaggerating, around 15 jobs, and I had probably 8 to 10 interviews, and always the review was like, great interview, never got the job. So at one point,
that's great feedback.
What did I do wrong?
Yes, but at one point, one of the HR manager was like, I heard that you do great interviews. I want to actually meet you because you're applying that much.
Oh my God.
But honestly, introspective, looking at it, they were talking about bananas. I was talking about apples. So I felt that I was doing, probably they liked my ambition and my drive. Actually, a lot of time, probably I was not the right person for the job.
Right.
And it took me a year and a half until somebody gave me another opportunity and I started to climb the ladder.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, as you said, and my accent is still pretty thick, and I was extremely conscious about it because as a Romanian, we kind of speak a Russian English.
Okay.
So the first hiring manager that hired me, I met with her, I think, after 4 years, and we were sitting in a lineup at the cafeteria, and it's like, oh, you've been doing so great. I like that you climbed the ladder, and you're great. I remember the first time that I met you that I didn't really understand what you're saying. And she was trying to be nice.
She was trying to be nice.
Yes,
oh,
but
wow.
as somebody that's over-conscious about the
Right.
accent, that was like...
You wouldn't know.
And like, you assume that...
The confidence.
Yes, but you assume that you speak a decent...
You
English,
do, yeah.
But somebody that's actually a native speaker tell you that I could barely understand you.
Yeah.
That was like... So...
That hurts.
But I was using that while I was confident.
Yeah.
I was using that because in interviews, they would ask you, what's your weakness? And I would be like,
your accent?
Yes, my accent is my weakness. So you don't...
It's a good... I'm going to use that.
Right?
And they were like, oh, no, you're trying to be nice.
Yeah.
This is good enough. And I was like,
I know. That trying to be nice, it kills people because...
But I was like, I know that, but I'm just trying to divert from my real weaknesses and just point out my accent because it's so out there. So you can...
Yeah.
But that's a struggle because you can't...
It is. Yeah.
But there's also cultural differences. Like, first job that I got, like in Romania, you tend to shake, if you need another man or another lady, you shake hands every day.
Right.
Oh,
so
that's right. Yes,
when I see you today, I'll shake your hand. How are you, John? If I come in tomorrow, I'll shake again your hand. How are you, man?
Yeah.
I went to my first job, shake everybody's hands. Everybody was nice. Second day I went.
No.
And nobody...
Everybody was like,
what are you doing?
You're done.
It took me a while to realize.
Yeah.
Also, like, again, I'm coming from a Western lifestyle country, so it was not a big cultural shock, but there are small things that kind of go against what you've been taught all your life. So in Romania, if I say, hey, how are you? I'm actually want to start a conversation with you.
Okay.
It's not...
Hey,
it's just
like
being
polite.
So
you don't even hear the answer. Like, whatever.
I was stopping and people were just walking past me. And I was like, he asked me how I am. We have a conversation.
Amazing.
You never and it took me a couple of years to realize. I'm talking about weather, like stuff like that you don't do in my culture. It was like, okay, plus sense of humor.
Yep.
Sense of humor got me in trouble in a corporate environment because I have a certain type of humor that not everybody gets. And while it works in my home country, some people might take it offensive here.
Yeah.
And I was calling into a manager's office and say, hey, I think you should take it down a notch. What did I do? Well,
you try to laugh to something.
You're laughing. Yes, I was laughing. You're laughing too loud. I was like, okay, but I'm doing my job and I'm performing.
Right.
That's very cultural.
Yes, and there were things like that you need to adjust as an immigrant. And people here, while they are welcoming, they are different from the people back home. So there's a different interaction. So,
but Canada, it's very mixed as well. Like, nowadays, like you have people from all over the world. And it's hard to say this is Canadian. You know what I'm saying? Yes, we do have things that you would say, like thank you at a time, apologize, or things like that. But it's very true, like the cultural shock, even for countries that are similar to North America, we still go through a culture shock. Like I'm originally from Brazil, and we're very friendly. Like we're very warm. We like to hug. We like to shake hands. We like to talk. We like to laugh. Right? This is us, and it's pretty much the same. Like here, you would laugh, but it's not the same. You would have to keep calm a little bit.
Wall between you and them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, like in my culture, that doesn't. You know, you like someone or you don't like it. Here, you're like, I don't know where I stand actually. So do I have a friend? Do I don't have a friend? So for me, it was hard to actually make connections to Canadian. What I found out, that I actually relate better with people in their 50s or in their 60s. People that I tied up friendship actually are older than 50 years old. Like from past jobs that I have, and that I really connected, the same mentality from family values and all of that was actually people a lot older than I am, closer to the baby boomers.
And that's a good point, because when we talk about language and community, like people that are immigrants or coming from another country, they tend to find their own community, their own people, which is good in a way, because then they will feel welcomed and they will feel less away from home, with the same community. But at the same time, it's harder to learn about the Canadian culture as well if they do that. If they only search, or they're only talking, or living the environment with the same culture. Or let's say I'm from Brazil, I would totally just talk with Brazilians or do whatever with the Brazilians, and forget a little bit about other cultures, or interact with people from other country. Like for us, food, it's a huge thing. I don't know about Romania, but food it's a huge thing. Like we gather to eat, right? And we love our food from Brazil. We were very rich in terms of food, but there's so many other type of foods as well here that we as Brazilian, we try to always keep our own, and don't try other foods, or try other different type of culture. And that's not good in terms of language as well, because if you want to improve your English, then you have to go outside and you have to interact, and that kind of pushes us to finding employment. Like if you want to find employment in Canada, it's all about networking as well. Like you have to network. You have to be out there. You have to volunteer. You have to, try to get out a little bit of your comfort zone. Right. So and that's very important when you say about culture and culture shock.
For example, the first Christmas party that I went to, we, like, as a culture, when we drink, we eat, and we do that for hours. Canadians drink a lot in a short period of time, and they don't party like at
and then they go home.
At 9:30, everybody's drunk, and they're going home, and you're like, I'm here.
That's it.
I'm here until 6 a.m. So what are you doing?
It's so funny. Brazil is the same.
Also, music. Like the first Christmas party that I went, a lot of country, not even a song that I knew. So it's hard to relate. Sweet Caroline, that right now I know that it's the Canadian song.
Is it? Oh, okay, funny.
I've
Okay.
never heard Sweet Caroline before a Christmas party.
What?
Or
I don't think I either.
If I heard it,
in the
it was just in the background. Okay, but that's
never realized.
when it started at the first Christmas party. Everybody was like up in the air. And I was like, what is happening? I don't know the lyrics. And
that is so funny.
It's hard to connect, but also, like, because of the country that I came from, also the shows that we've seen, they were a bit different than the one here. So when people are doing references, doing jokes, it's hard for you to relate to that. And they had similar experience in the high school. high school back in Romania is completely different than what it's here. So all of those things that bring people together is hard for you because I came here when I was 31. So I'm already grown up and I had my experience and I'm already the person that I am based on those experience, those songs that I listened back home, back in Europe, a lot of experience that I live, and now I have to connect in a society that is not my own.
Right.
And then like also I changed my name. So if you think about it, it's a huge displacement.
Yeah.
Because right now my home is not my home anymore because if I go back in Romania, probably I will not be able to do it. Or if I
this
adapt.
Is so true.
And also, I'm never gonna be home here.
Yeah.
Because I'm always gonna have my accent, and I'm always gonna be a Romanian at heart. So, us as
and then you kind of lose your friends back home. They're not the same.
The reality is completely different.
It's completely different. This is so true. Like I left home when I was 16 years old, so it's been a long time. And I had I was a teenager, and I had lots of friends, and then I left, and I was like, no, when I come back, it's gonna be the same. You know, they're still there, but it wasn't. Like I felt like, am I home?
You think that you're going back to the same people that you left?
Yeah.
But they had 10 years of experience and life that changed them.
Yeah.
And they have the Brazilian, Romanian society that, like, Romanians are extremely negative. So I think I've changed a bit.
That's good.
When my parents come,
debatable.
Again, this is a change.
But we get along, so whatever.
What you see here is a change. So when I go home or my parents or my in-laws visit, I feel that nothing is good enough. So but that's the Romanian culture, and I feel the weight, and I feel like I don't belong.
Yeah.
And also here,
you're always an immigrant. Like when you leave your home to actually immigrate to a different country, you're always going to be an immigrant. Like doesn't matter how long you've been here in Canada. It doesn't matter that you still have a little bit of accent. It doesn't matter like if your entire family came with you. You're always an immigrant, and that can be a burden. It depends, right? It depends how you see it. Like it depends.
On the day also because
exactly. Yes.
Because I have days like we're going somewhere and let's say I talk to a Romanian friend and then we are ordering something in English and they ask me, where are you from? And you get tired of that question at some point and I say from Moncton. And if they ask again, where exactly from? Moncton North. So it depends on the day. Like
it does. Like, that's true. That's true.
If we are asked the same question over and over, and people are trying to be nice.
Yeah.
But if you also have your bad days, sometimes you're like, I don't want to have that discussion anymore.
Yeah.
But I think I've seen some like in a taxi, like a taxi driver that is from a different country, and just he put it there. No, don't ask me where I'm from. And, I don't want to have that discussion again.
Oh wow!
It's funny because like I was, I went and met with one of my friends that I hadn't seen in a while, and she was actually selling something on a marketplace.
Right.
And kind of the point of the story is with having stories when you meet people, and the people that came in from marketplace were from Ukraine. And this was like a foot in mouth moment where it was like, you could like, I'm helping them kind of bring it into their car and all that. I'm like, oh, so like, how's Canada? It must be like much better than Ukraine. He's like, well, yeah, no war. I'm like,
oh.
And you think about like moments like that, you're like, you want
to be friendly, you want to be that Canadian friendly.
Again, at the end of the day, if you want to be included and be part of something, maybe the discussion is, how was your day? Then where are you
from? Right. So that's true.
Yes, I'm from here. I've been here for 10 years. Ask me something that you would ask someone
that's from here. Yeah.
But again, depends on the day because
I was just hoping like, it must be much better than back home. It's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I already walked into that one. Yeah. But you know what? Like I'll say, like I've been in Moncton for close to 30 years, but I'm originally from England, and I've had the opposite where just recently I went back to England, and I have cousins that the last time that I went, I was 14, and they were like 3, 4, 5 years old, and you don't know them at that, like they're so young that they're not really even kids, right?
Yeah.
And when I went back at the age that I'm at right now, they're completely different people, right? And so that experience happens, you know, whether I think you know them or you don't know them at all, is that like life happens, right? And but I would say that you probably make home is the place that you pick, right?
100%,
because in a certain sense, it's like, do you feel comfortable in this space, and is it somewhere where you want to stay? I think those are important things. Like, I've lived in Moncton long enough to know that the things that I need are here, and I can always come back, but here is where I want to stay. And I love traveling, and I love going out on adventures, and more recently I've started solo traveling and stuff like that. So for me, it's not difficult to go out and explore, and I'm thankful that throughout my youth, my parents were really like, hey, we're going to go travel, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So that has become part of the nature of how I kind of grow up. But I think you have to establish a place where you're like, I've got what I need.
That's what I want. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's an important part.
But again, it's part of the culture because, like, for my country, like, we didn't have immigrants. It was a closed country. So the idea was like, and people were not moving, not even for jobs. Like, for you to understand, like, Romania was so static. You would basically inherited your parents' house.
And that's it.
That was it. You knew where you're gonna live, and you're gonna live with your parents. You're gonna move in the back room or something like that. Even like the Romanian society was so enclosed that even if you're buying a car, usually you keep a car for like 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And they would take care of that car. So, like, for me, the fact that I displaced myself right now is so hard to put actually roots and attach, because the mentality was like, I was like in the Romanian Navy. My mentality was like, I'm gonna die for my country, and my thought process changed so much. So I decided to leave the country. So I pulled my roots out, and now it's hard to see. Like, if my daughter in 4 years she's gonna finish high school and say, I want to do university in Montreal, or I want to go back to Romania, I don't think I have a problem selling my house and just moving away from here.
And I think this is something that comes with, like, deciding to be an immigrant, I guess, right? Because it takes courage. Like, it takes a lot to leave your country, leave everybody, your family, and go to a completely different land and people and everything. Not everybody stays. Like, I've known people that you know, came here, for example, in Canada. They were well established and they were, like, apparently okay, but they weren't, like, they were depressed. They didn't fit well. They felt really lonely, and everything was apparently good. Like, they had work. They bought a house. Like, everything was okay. But you never know, because it's the internal struggles that immigrant goes through that not really everybody wants to keep or fight that to be able to stay.
So I guess it kind of, one of the big reasons why we're kind of here today, and one of the questions I wanted to ask is, you know, what are you in the position that you are right now? What's primarily the motivation for a lot of people to choose? I'm not going to say just Canada, but maybe Atlantic Canada right now from the outside looking in, because you can speak from the experience who've been here, you can speak to the experience, but we have that experience. Now we know. But you're probably seeing people that are actively choosing it.
Yes.
Why? Not in a bad way. It's like, why not?
Simply because of immigration.
Okay.
So here in Atlantic Canada, there are more opportunities to actually immigrate, other than just being a temporary resident. So if you talk about other provinces in Canada, yes, they do have options as well, but it's not as fast. So people choose or really want to come here because they have the opportunity to settle faster than other provinces. So if we talk about, we compare Atlantic Canada to Ontario or like any other province, we here in Atlantic Canada, the immigration or RSCC has created lots of options, really, like programs, immigration programs that will enable people to actually come here already with opportunity to apply for the permanent resident, which is a huge plus in terms of if we compare to other provinces. Like I have people that I know people that are in Ontario, for example, on a work permit or a study permit for like 4 years, 3 years, with no expectation or no hope that they will immigrate soon.
Okay.
So they are actually coming here trying to settle. I guess that's the first reason that people would want to come here. The other thing that I hear a lot as well is quality of life. So big cities, you don't, I guess, commute is way more harder than here. Finding a job is harder as well because you have more people applying for jobs, qualified people applying for jobs.
Yeah.
And again, we go back to, having education credential from outside Canada, competing with people that are already in Canada that has master degrees or education in Canada. Quality of life, nowadays that not so much, but housing used to be one. Now, not really, but still, like if you compare buying a house in New Brunswick to buying a house in Toronto, it's impossible for an immigrant. Like, I'm not gonna say impossible, but it's really hard.
It's impossible for everyone.
Exactly. To buy a home in Toronto, right? Compared to here. Yes, it's expensive here compared to like 2019 when I got here. But if you do compare Toronto's prices and cost of life and all that, yes, like there is no comparison to Atlantic Canada. So for not only people that are outside Canada that kind of target Atlantic Canada, but immigrants that are in other provinces, they are immigrating here, especially Moncton, because of, again, like the possibility. I always like to compare immigration to, or PR, so the permanent resident, right? I always like to compare us to, let's say you're living in a home, you love your home, right? It's a house, like it's your house, it's your family are there, like you feel safe. Imagine someone coming knocking your door and say you need to leave in three months. Like you're in 3 months you're gonna lose your house. It's the same when you have someone that are here on a work permit or a temporary resident. That suddenly they don't know what to do anymore to stay permanently, and then now they need to leave. So all the investment and money and time and everything that you can think of that they had when they came here in Canada as a temporary resident, it's just gonna go.
Yeah, it's wasted, right?
Right. So that's the main reason that I feel like people are choosing Atlantic Canada specifically in Canada. Because you can settle way faster than other provinces.
So how, like, and we talked a bit about the complexities from an employer's perspective, or at least maybe we're making the problem more complex. But I mean, like, from coming into a country, like how complex, or maybe it's simpler than we're thinking as we're inside here, like how does the process look like? And I'm thinking like getting in here is like
I can do like you did it when you were young, so I actually did all the paperwork. I did all the application. And unfortunately for our family it took like almost 5 years because we started the Quebec program, but something happened in Europe at that time. The Canadian center that was in Europe, so it was changed.
Okay.
So everything on Quebec was delayed. So then we said, okay, we're going to apply for New Brunswick.
Okay.
But once you get an invitation for an interview, you can only do one or the other. So you cannot continue with two applications. So by the time that the New Brunswick application kind of went to fruition, also the Quebec one, they actually catch up. So they call us for both at the same time. But from the moment that we started until the moment we landed in Canada was close to 4 years and a half. So, but if I would be looking only on the New Brunswick one, it took us 2 years and a half. But you have to understand that you have to do a lot of paperwork. When you like,
a lot of effort.
We have to take a language test. So at the time, because I wanted to immigrate to Quebec, we took the French TFAQ. So we had to pay.
Can you even speak French?
I was gonna ask.
Oui, je parle français.
Oh, no way! What?
So
that's
because I
awesome.
studied in school and was for us, okay, we got to choose one of the two.
Okay.
So we said TFAQ was a bit simpler
Okay.
than YELTS. So we did that, but you invest in because private
It's an
tuition at
investment.
that.
Yes.
Plus you gotta pay for translation of all documents, and I'm thinking like the whole process only from a document standpoint, because then you are called for an interview, you gotta go to the interview, then you have a second amount of documents that you need, and imagine that you fill those documents and you send them in an envelope to the embassy, and there's nothing.
You don't know,
It's
right?
You don't hear
Yeah.
anything for
And then you
a
get
great while.
if
Yes,
you
true.
make a small mistakes, the documents are coming back.
Yes. Like
Yeah,
really
no.
small.
Yeah,
Yes.
true,
And
Which
they are
is
not-
very annoying.
Yeah.
Like they could have just said, "Oh, this is wrong. Can
Could've
you
just sent it in
correct?"
an email.
No, they send the entire application out.
So probably the whole for me and my family probably let's say between $5,000 and $10,000 only.
Easy.
Only on the document. Then, as a person, like the way I did it was like, okay, you gotta buy the tickets, $5,000. So you're up $15,000. Then you come and I came with a small child, 4 years old. So I knew that my wife cannot work.
Yeah, that's
And
another
then-
issue too.
And then like my mindset was like, I'm not gonna stay in New Brunswick. No, I have not heard about New Brunswick before I applied.
Of course.
Nobody in Europe knows where Moncton is.
No, exactly.
So I was like, I'm gonna land in Moncton because I'm a permanent resident.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay for a couple of days and then justify it with some
Just a couple of days.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Just a couple
didn't even
days,
give
see
it a
how it
chance.
goes.
No, and then I'm just gonna fight Toronto. So, but then I kind of start to do my homework.
Right.
So I talked to the people in Toronto. Okay, how much is rent? How
Yeah,
much do I have to pay
Yeah.
for a car?
exactly.
So my mindset is like, I know that then I'm gonna recognize the fact that I'm an engineer and I don't want to do 4 years of school. I know that, let's put worst case scenario, I'm gonna have a level entry job. What's the minimum salary? Where can I survive with the minimum salary of one person?
Yes.
So when I looked at New Brunswick, where I was paying, I don't know, 800 and something for a 2-bedroom apartment with everything included, or Toronto that at that time was $1,500 to $2,000, like in a bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Right.
then maybe I will stay in New Brunswick for 6 months,
Okay.
just to kind of
Just
get a bit
6 months.
Yes.
See how it
Yeah,
goes.
and 10 years after.
Here
In
we
10
are.
years, here I am.
But also coming to Canada, you need to have at least 6 months because I came with a child. So you need my calculation at that time was like we need around $3,000 per month to survive
Okay.
in 2014. So like the average Canadian doesn't see, it's the difference between an immigrant and a refugee. So an immigrant invests.
Oh, a lot.
Right.
A
Okay.
You
lot
invest
of money.
probably
Yeah.
up to $50,000,
Yes.
and that is an influx of money that comes in Canada. And Canada has not done anything for it.
Right. True.
So you are paying government fees,
Mhm.
Yeah.
plus you're paying money because you need to buy furniture, you need to buy a car.
Everything.
And you don't have yet an income. And you bring that all into the Canadian economy. So immigration for the Canadian government, actually, personally, I think it's a bit of a business. Because
Oh, yes.
it's an influx of money
Yes.
into the economy. Plus, you get highly educated people like
Mm.
myself that are never gonna go back to school 4 years because I have to go to work
Exactly.
to
It's just
sustain my
to sustain
family.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get highly qualified doing a lower qualified job. So you also
Cheap labor.
cheap labor, but
Cheap
also
labor.
you're keeping criminality at a low level because you are not bringing somebody that's gonna come here to your idea of
Right.
kill
He
people.
has. Right.
or
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
steal
true,
or to
true,
do
true.
something. No,
Yeah.
I'm a professional. I want to succeed.
Exactly.
Right.
So I will do my best. And
Yeah.
as we said before, I don't want to go back home.
No.
Because from a cultural standpoint, I'm going to
especially after all this money that you invested.
True.
And also not only the money, but like the
family,
exactly the emotional investment that your kids, like you have to put on your kids and the entire family, like the grandfather.
So in the morning when you wake up and you hate your job, you're gonna
just want to
suck
go.
it up and you're gonna go. But
Yep.
like if I've been in Romania or like if I'm a Canadian, I'd be like, I can find another job.
Yeah.
But also my culture was like we didn't have 10 jobs. Like like I didn't know what that was. And for me, like if somebody would fire you back home, that would be the end. Like from a cultural standpoint, you
total failure,
you're
right?
a failure and you're not gonna be able to find a job. Took me years to kind of understand, okay, you lose your job, you're going to find another job. It's okay.
Right.
But coming here as an immigrant, no, I will not disappoint these people. They gave me an opportunity, and I'm going to do the best that I can be at it.
Yeah, that's
and
the
you
mindset.
See it. You see it.
You do. Yeah, 100%.
I think that's something that comes with
even
a lot
in the
of,
recruit, because I do international recruitment, and even from the beginning, like you can tell how invested they are. Not
engaged.
Only so not only on like investing money for the paperwork or whatever it takes, but like the actual job, like the actual.
They're not taking it for granted,
no,
right? They're coming in, they're like,
most
hey,
of them,
I'm grateful for this. I'm going to do my best.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's you know what? I think you make a good point there. It's a testament to the resilience of people that are making the process to move here and to do that, because to go like I would not accept in my own life to hate my job and keep going at it.
No.
I would find another job. I know, but I'm just saying it's like it's impressive, because I think it's like, dude, your life is so friggin' short that like doing something that you hate for a long amount of time, I'm like, my brain doesn't compute like that.
But then we go back to retention, right?
Yeah.
So I always like to mention that when we talk about immigrants, international recruiting, and retaining immigrants, it's not different from retaining someone from here, I guess. Like you have to, yes, the mindset is different, like the immigrant mindset is different, but the effort that the company needs to have in terms of retaining employees has to be the same for everybody. No, not just because you come from another country, I'm going to do something different with you, or no, you're from here, I'm going to do something right. So this is what I guess knowing or working from my experience with a lot of immigrants and a lot of newcomers, I got from, because it's hard. It's hard, again, the bias, right? It's hard for an employer or sometimes to, kind of separate. Right. Oh no, you came straight. Like I have candidates that come straight to work in a company here, like from their country to work only in that company, and they come initially with a closed work permit.
Okay.
So they can only work. So they can only work for that employer. They can only work doing that job that they applied for until they get their permanent resident. So they need to be committed. Like doesn't matter what happens. So I guess the tricky part is not to take that a little bit of like, oh, you're here, you can go anywhere, I'm going to do anything with you. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like we need to be careful with that as well.
There's that mentality that yes, they brought immigrants and they're paying less and they're doing more job for less money.
Exactly.
Personally, and I know that Elmo Group would never do that, would not pay somebody less
just because
based on their nationality. And I think that's a wrong perception. And I have not heard in New Brunswick for a company that would pay less for an immigrant that would pay for a local.
It doesn't. It's not even allowed. Like every time. So let's say we decide to hire an international candidate. We have to disclose everything in their application to the immigration.
Okay.
So the immigration will assess. Okay, are they paying a fair rate? Yeah. Like is this? They have a scale of like from whatever rate to whatever, depending on the position. So it's, and that's to protect not only the candidate but the employer as well, right? In terms of like, no, you have to offer what you would to a local candidate.
So
Like,
if
it
we're
has to
hiring
be
somebody
fair.
for $18, is going to hire an immigrant also for
Exactly.
$18.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think like I understand what you both are saying, but I think the problem that a lot of people are sensing, and I think you've lived it, is that they're coming in and the first thing they need to accept is that they're not going to get anything else but an entry level job. So that is in turn a job that you make less money. So that's where maybe cheap labor, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's there's two different types of scenarios.
It's like, why would you have a doctor like being an Uber driver? It doesn't make any
Right,
sense.
yeah.
Like, and I think like maybe it's not something like, first of all, we don't have Uber in Moncton, but I'm saying like if you have a taxi driver, like I've personally been in taxis with guys that I've been to university and played soccer with. They're in a taxi because they've had a family and they've, you know, that's things change in their life and all that, but they haven't been able to find a job outside of university.
Yeah.
And I'm
Which
like,
is sad.
like
Yeah.
I went to the same university,
But
like
there's
right.
also the
So
personal factor.
yeah.
There's also the personal factor. But if we come back to strictly immigrants, is the way the Canadian society protects itself and the educational system. Because I think the educational system in Canada is based on a lot of fees. Like back in Romania, yes, right now we're paying a bit for university, that most of your universities are state-owned, and you get your education for free.
Yeah.
Here, you pay for your education. Let's say in my case, to be an engineer, you have to pay a certain amount a year, and by the end of your tenure at the university, you're going to pay, let's say, close to $100,000. Then you have an engineer coming from Romania, and you
Yeah.
as a Canadian system, you're not going to say, you're good.
Yeah.
Come on in and be an engineer. You're gonna say,
Engineer,
if you
exactly.
want to be an engineer in Canada,
Yeah.
you have to go a bit to school and also pay us
A
at least
little bit.
$30,000
Yeah.
just to kind of recognize the same study that you did.
Yeah.
I just want to
but
make sure here.
We need the money, and you have to be part of the engineer order. And there's a lot of so that's the Canadian system, and that's why it happens that highly educated people end up to be a Uber driver.
Exactly.
Because they do not
They don't have
afford
money, yeah.
$150,000 per year to be a doctor or something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating too, because I think like in a certain sense, and you know, I studied in political science, and we talk a lot about like the public sector and the private sector and how much regulation there should be. And I think that in a certain sense in employment, it is important to have regulations, but in a society, especially like we have right now, there are probably regulations that are making the system suffer more than they should. And I think that is a good example, is like a doctor that has a doctorate and knows how to practice medical,
But
like should be recognized in some way that doesn't hinder their ability to do that position when we're in dire need for doctors.
I was just going to say, yeah.
There's another factor to that. There's also the personal factor. There's a lot of people that, let's say, they can take a language test, but without being actually proficient at the language. So let's say you're going to have a chemist that's actually a chemist from England, let's say. And not wrong country, from Spain. From Spain, and he would pass the IELTS test.
Right.
But when it comes to professional proficiency in English, he's not going to be that good. So are you as a society going to allow that chemist from Spain to go to a lab and maybe blow that lab out because he's in English? So
I guess it depends.
There's a bit of a balance.
Exactly.
The system needs to protect itself from those kind of situations.
But I would rather see the system allow someone to be able to become more proficient in English, which is probably something that makes more sense, versus being like your degree doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like,
right?
They do that with the nurses right now. I think they recognize 6 or 7 countries, but Romania is not one of them. So I would do, as you said, yes, I would do probably the language. Okay, let me help you with the language, and then, okay, penicillin, like in Romania, is called in a certain way, here it's called in a certain way. I'll help you learn everything on that, but you know how to do an IV at the end of the day. It's the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are challenges, but again, that's bureaucracy. So at the end of the day, not gonna
and I guess language, it comes with time as well in practice.
Yeah.
Like if you don't practice well, like you're not going to improve. Like that's a fact. But at the same time, like some people are shy, or they feel like, oh, I don't want to do any mistake, or like I know people that come here with the entire family, that usually the spouse comes here with a job offer, so they come straight to work for that company, but the spouse doesn't speak English, or the kids they don't speak English, so they struggle way more to fit into the culture, because, or even to find a job, because they don't speak English, but at the same time they're shy, or they don't want to, they don't know how to improve, or they don't know what to do. And I always say, if we talk about immigrants, we're not talking about one person only, unless, yes, of course, they're single and they come by their own, but it's usually 90% that I know, and then from my experiences, they come with the entire family.
Right.
And that means a lot of effort and money, investment, and
logistics on that end. So when we came, like, you have to imagine that she says somebody knocked on her door. So when we got, like, okay, you do the medicals and then you got the visa, when you know that you send your passport, you know that you want to go. And for us, it was summertime, so it said, okay, it's happening in May. We're like, we got to go in summertime because we don't want to arrive in Canada in wintertime.
No.
So
that's another thing.
Yes, to be able to kind of integrate yourself in that mindset, Canadian mindset. So like, okay, what are we going to do next? Let's buy bags. So there's a certain allowance, even as an immigrant, then you're going to end up paying, but how many bags you can carry. So we ended up with 9 bags, and one of them was full of toys. So it was just because we said, okay, we can sleep on the floor and we can do things in a certain way, but our daughter Isabella needs to still feel like home.
Right. Feel like home.
So we had to take.
That's interesting.
We carried books and we paid by the kilogram with bags. So like we arrived. I remember luckily we had somebody that rented an apartment and we slept on a mattress the first night. But there are immigrants that live in a hotel room when they come here. So
right.
There's a lot of things about immigration that people like don't understand. You arrive and everything is different. Like, even the fact that the trucks, we don't have trucks back home. Like everything is bigger and it's a visual impact and
then questions that I like some people make is in terms of like, okay, you had to invest all this. Like, why did you want to come to Canada? Like, especially Brazil. Brazil, it's a very warm country, and there's a lot of good stuff and food and places and stuff. And questions that I keep hearing is, why are you here, especially in the winter? Because I complain a lot about the winter. And then so why are you here? Like, why did you decide to come? And it's not that simple. Like, why did you decide to come? I can't really say that in one word.
I think it's personal. We're like, even if we're from the same neighborhood, we
Yeah.
have different motivations.
Exactly.
Like,
there's a lot of factors.
Maybe I'm
Yeah.
stressed by the public sector, and I have
Exactly.
not,
Yeah.
public sector,
Or
and
security, or
yeah.
like you're not feeling
different.
Exactly.
For me, was the stress in the Romanian society.
Right.
Yeah, like a
Everybody was
tipping
stressed.
point, right?
Yeah, what was everybody was stressed. Everything that you're doing was you were loaded with negative energy, from traffic to public sector to hospitals.
Yeah.
Even here at the supermarket, or sometimes, yes, depends on the day, when somebody asks you about the weather, you're like, really? But back home, they'll be like,
That's it.
next. Even this here kind of gives you, okay, that person is positive. So that gives you a vibe, and like, even if you're a bit negative, you're like, and then they ask you, how did you like it today? It was beautiful outside. And you're like, yeah, it was. Actually, you're right. It was beautiful, but maybe I was so stressed that I didn't see. But in Romania, it's everybody go, 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 go. And I got to a point,
I'm
I was like,
scared to go to Romania now.
And I was like, this is not fun. I don't want to get old here and be stressed and be in that traffic all the time. Here, like when I got here, what traffic? Like you get everywhere in 15 minutes.
It's starting to get like...
It's starting, but it's not as bad,
No,
I
I know.
think.
You
Still.
can walk. You can bike. You can get a scooter, and you're still going to be like in 20 minutes everywhere.
Yeah,
so. Moncton's still in a good place.
Or you can drive on the wrong side of the road like you do in England, which is...
No,
Exactly.
So fun.
I've seen that here. Like in the first couple of months, I seen an old lady driving the wrong side of the highway.
I lived in Scotland for 3 years. That's when I learned English.
Yeah.
I don't have any accent anymore, Scottish accent anymore, but that's, and I feel like, so when I decided to come to Canada, with, I think my experience with was a little bit different because I came with the language, so I already I had a good
That's probably a
understanding.
big part, right?
It is, yeah. So when I decided to come here, again, like I had a good communication skill, so I could communicate, I could, look for a job, but I could talk about my skills, and kind of sell myself, sell my profile, right? And that happened when we came to Moncton. Like I felt like I could, talk, and I could develop my profession, and I could, like, I felt a little bit more home than Toronto, right? I felt like, okay, here is where we can grow, and that's exactly what happened. I didn't come to spend 6 months. But
your experience is a bit. You had the opportunity to start at the beginning of your professional life.
exactly,
So that's like with myself, that I came when I was 30 something. Those 10 years while I accumulated some experience,
I feel like
I
it's
had
a
to start
waste,
over.
right?
start over, yeah.
For the point where I am right now in my professional life, I should have been 10 years ahead of this.
But my education background is in psychology, and when I came to Moncton specifically, I already had a lot of experience in HR
Okay.
back home, but I had to start from not zero, but like I started in entry level in HR, but in an entry level position,
Right.
which is like, I find it was really helpful, to be honest, because I was able to actually understand what was HR in Canada, which is different from,
Start from the ground up.
yes, which is different from Brazil. Especially the recruitment process is very different, and the mindset and like everything like that. So I was able to kind of grow my way up to where I am today. So I find it was really, really helpful. However, I wasn't, I wanted to grow. And I think that's a mindset that the immigrant brings as well.
Right.
Like, I find that a lot of people come, and yes, they're okay to start in an entry level position,
Yep.
but they do want to grow. Like, they do
But I can
want
tell you
to.
that I see that competitive factor that, to me, I don't find it that much in my daughter anymore.
Right.
Because she came here when she was 4 years, so she's part of this society.
Right.
Yeah,
So
true.
she's
a Canadian.
She's a Canadian, so she doesn't have the drive and
The drive. Yes,
that I
yes.
had. And I feel a bit frustrated about it, but again, I know that this is her reality. This is her home.
Right.
And in a way, I feel sorry that she doesn't have
Yeah.
it, because again, for me, with an advantage compared to like people like her,
Right.
that take things for granted, then
Right.
she's going to probably grow a bit, and I had to jump. So
You
basically,
you do develop here, which I think is, in my experience, you're going to have a moment in your life where it's going to change, and you're going to realize that you don't have that many opportunities. Here, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, there's
So you
so
feel
many
more
choices.
comfortable. Yes.
And it's like, we were just talking
That's
right
true.
before this, is like, you just think about like the situations that we have with like housing and skilled laborers and all of that. It's like, that could have been, and I have friends that have made that choice, that have become skilled laborers, that made a really great choice, that at the time when I was back there, it was one of many choices and it didn't feel like the best one.
Yeah.
But it's like, you take that for granted, that there's that opportunity, that one opportunity there that you can take, and you go for it, but you're complacent.
Yes.
And I think that's what you develop here.
Right.
Now,
I agree.
what happened to me is there was the moment where you lose opportunity, or you get a setback, and it's one that you really suffer from, and then you realize, oh shit, okay, maybe there isn't always an opportunity, right?
But that comes with maturity as well.
Yeah,
you get mature in it, and you kind of realize that it's not always easy, and it's not always ready for you, or it's always there for you, right? I think that drive that immigrant has when they come here and they want to grow, they want to explore everything they can, and they want to do a really good job because they want to grow. It doesn't matter where sometimes, but they do want to grow because it's their story, right? It's their successful story. Again, like if we talk about all the challenge that we already did about being an immigrant, and then at the end of the day, they do have the opportunity to grow and then become whatever they wanted to become when they first got here. It is a great story. Like they, you know, they will feel accomplished. They will feel like, wow, I did good. Like everything that we went through, all the challenges and everything that we had to invest, it was worth it.
Yeah.
So that is the drive that sometimes I don't find in the local candidates, for example. That makes all the difference.
The hardship, right? I mean, I
Exactly.
think you need to present yourself into situations where you have to go through difficult things. And sometimes here it's like, a little bit softer, right?
At the end of the day, let's say if I'm my daughter and I'm living in my parents' basement and I know that nobody's going to kick me out, am I going to have the same drive that I had knowing that I want to buy a house?
Yeah.
Not really, because some things are inherited, and she has the comfort that I didn't have. And again, that could be a good thing because she's going to have more choices than I had. Because I took the first job that I got. I didn't jump on it. So again, happy ending. And I think I'm always talking to my wife about the fact that we are so grateful that I think, I don't know if to say if we had it easy, but we're best case scenario. We didn't do a lot of manual labor. We didn't have a day where we don't have money to pay the rent, or we never got to a point where it was actually hard for us. And I'm grateful for that. But there are a lot of stories, as you said, of people that fail. So that and you have to go back.
Yeah.
And that's as Canadian, you stay here because that's your home. But as an immigrant,
you just wanna.
You don't have the support system, so you have to go back.
And I was actually talking to someone yesterday that it's a family. They've been here in Canada for 5 years, I think. Most of the time they've been in Ontario with the work permit, so being a temporary resident. And they decided to come to Atlantic Canada probably around 6 months to have the work permit expire. That means that they only had that time to get the permanent resident somehow, right? So with any available programs that we have here. But with a change with one of the programs here, she was actually going to apply, let's say this week, and then 2 days before she decided to apply, the program changed, so she wasn't eligible anymore. So now they have their work permit expiring in less than 2 months now. And she was talking to me. She was like, we don't have no idea what to do because we've spent so much money. It's just unbelievable. Probably more than $50,000 up to now. She said the money that we have today is either we were saving money to buy a house here, but so that's why when we talk about immigration, it's so important to understand what it is and how important that is to a family. It's not only about paperwork. It's not only about, being able to stay. It's being, like she said, my kids she has a 4 years old, I believe, and he does speak Portuguese, but he can't read. He can it's not fully bilingual. If she spend that money to go back home, she will have nothing left, right? After all this time here. So there's stories that are really hard.
Yes. Plus, sometimes it's one of the spouses that want to immigrate, and the other one just follows. So if you don't have
that's exactly what she said, actually.
If you don't have that support in the home, you don't see that. So if they don't both people in the couple going the same way, then they set up a failure. So it is complicated.
It is really complicated, yeah. So I felt really sorry. Like, I wanted to help her somehow. I'm actually trying to help them, which is a family. But I was thinking, I'm like, wow, like spending more than $50,000. That's just
That's
money.
crazy. Yeah.
But you have your entire family. They are already settled. Like they go to school. Her oldest has a boyfriend here. Like they're all settled, right? And now out of a sudden they need to leave because of something that went wrong. And it's just sad, right? So it's not always about successful stories. Yes, we have lots of good stories and successful ending, or not ending, but people that come here with little, and after a while they find themselves in their right position with a home and like all good. But we do have people that struggle as well, and they're not refugees; they are immigrants. Like they're here.
And there's also the mentality. Like I knew people from back in Romania that came here, and they had like position like myself. They were managers back home, and they came with the mentality, I'm a manager in Romania. I will find a job as a
That's
manager
another
in
thing
Canada.
too.
Okay.
And they cannot accept the fact
to
that
go
they
lower.
lost their status.
Yes.
Okay.
And the status is like we are extremely proud individuals as Romanians, and we like our status. So for people that they've been working and climbing up, if they don't come here with the mentality that I need to start from scratch, a lot of people that I know personally that fail was because of that.
That's
just the
true.
ego, right?
Yeah, that's true as well.
Because you cannot accept the fact that
you have to go back.
Yes.
Backwards
Let's say
a little
maybe not as I started from all the way down, but you still need to take a couple of steps back, because even if I was a manager back home, there are some big differences between the way logistic functions in the two continents in Europe and North America. So you need a bit of time to adjust to that reality.
Yeah.
But there are people that don't want that. No, I know what I am, I know what I'm good at, and I want to be that. And
it's the overconfidence. Like you get people that have no confidence at all, and then people that are over confident.
And they're just gonna grow that in happiness and be like, no, Canada is a bad place. They
That's
didn't give me the opportunity.
The right opportunity, yes.
And they're gonna spend the money.
Yeah.
Another aspect on your life. When you even have properties back home, you sell those properties.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are people that are selling their properties, and a lot of times if they don't have a good mentality, they would buy expensive cars here and invest that money, and then if you fail, you're gonna sell everything and you're gonna lose a lot of money, and then you have to go back.
Yeah.
So people I think that failed in the past were like, they wanted the same status, and that's not gonna happen right away. Or I met people that they tricked the system and they didn't know the language properly, and they expected the same opportunities without knowing the language and not being aware that their language level was so low that they could not get the job that they actually deserved.
Right.
So they also grow frustrated and said, no, the Canadian society is not fair.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you have those. That's true. Yeah. I was at a job fair at some point, and we were trying to help people to find job. That's what we do. And I have a couple candidates coming to me, and I said, well, we have these position available. It's a nice way for you to start and show your skills and grow within a company and stuff. And they were actually saying exactly what you're saying. My background is manager. I was a manager in my back in my home country, and that I can't. I don't want to go like below this. Like the only position I want to apply is for a manager. I'm like, okay. Right now we don't have that. And it's
both, like, especially in logistics, because I'm in that position. I imagine myself coming right now from Romania. The safety regulations are different.
Exactly. There's things that you don't understand.
There's something that probably I would need at least 6 months, even if I'm a superstar back home.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And nobody put me in a leadership position if I put the people that are lead in danger. So that's something that you need to be self-aware that while you have the capacity to do that job, you don't have the full knowledge. So you need to accept the fact that take a step back.
Yeah.
Again, not at the lowest level, but take a step back and get that North American experience. Because it's, while you're still taking logistics from point A and bring it to point B, in between those, there's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a bit of different reality, and people sometimes, the immigrants, don't accept it.
Now, I always ask a final question to everyone, but it's gonna have to be a little bit different this time because I think it's one, like we try to always point it in hopes that youth might be a show that they'll end up watching along their life or their career or all that. But what I'd like to ask is, if you were to start over again and come back into the country, what would you wish you would have known?
You mean Canada?
Yeah. The winters.
That's a hard question. I guess.
Take your time.
I guess I really don't know. I can't think of anything else because I was so open to learn when I started that I just wanted to do my job well. It was just.
Well, maybe
I feel like today. So I started as a human resources assistant, and I grew all my way up to international recruitment manager today.
Yeah.
I think that I could probably maybe a little bit more partner with everybody else.
Yeah.
Like sometimes although you're willing to start, in an entry-level position, but your mindset is like, I know everything about this.
Right.
because
you're starting from scratch, right?
Exactly.
You have
I do have the experience. However, yes, I am willing to start as an assistant, but I
still know better.
Exactly. I know better, right? So maybe taking a little bit of step back and okay, I need to learn more. And I need to be more partner with the operation. And hiring manager more than no, I know all about it and you need to kind of follow me. I think that's the only thing I think of. Because I did have to learn this along way in my professional life.
And I think it's like yesterday we had another podcast and one of the closing statements was, to always try and to be curious. And I think it's on two levels. It's one, it's difficult to stay curious if you know so much.
Exactly.
And also sometimes it's it's often that you are maybe scared to ask those questions or to have a curiosity because it's maybe an unknown, right?
But I think when I realized that I had to kind of take a step back a little bit and learn more and be open to listen more than I was, I grew up way faster. I grew in my career way faster than before because I felt at some point I was stuck. But when I started to realize, no, I need to listen more to the hiring manager, for example, because there are certain things that I don't know and they know more than me, right? But at the same time, they need to listen to myself too.
Because when you asked the question, I thought about, I know what I would have come earlier probably.
Right.
I would have come earlier to Canada, and if I realized that I didn't have the opportunity, but if I could have come to study in Canada, I would have studied. Do my studies in Canada, and I've been set up.
That would help too.
Because I would have still had that immigrant mentality, but with the
knowledge.
Right.
And as a life thing that I think I should do more even now is listen more. And be more quiet and be aware of what. Because I think I'm a very opinionated person.
Really?
Yes. And I think there's a lot of value in listening to others' opinion and not listening to yourself.
It's a skill that we're forever kind of learning and developing for sure. And it's really important. That's true.
You're passionate about your job. I'm passionate about my job. So I tend to be over expressing myself rather than absorbing the information and wait to be the last one to talk.
I feel like as well is something that immigrants want to show when they first start a job is they want to prove themselves, right? They want to prove that they're good.
Mm-hmm.
They want to prove that the opportunity that they or the employer's given them, it's worth they're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah. They want to show their competency.
They want
right?
to show really hard.
Yeah.
And that being said, it's hard to listen because they always want to show that they know things and they want to, do things. And
it's not out of malice, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the passion as well that sometimes kind of get in your way instead of help you. You just need to watch a little bit on okay, are you overstepping or are you not listening to people that you should? Because of that passion, because of that knowledge that you have so much that you want to show, you want to grow, or you want to, do your best job, and then you want people to see it. You want people to understand that, yes, although you're immigrant, you have a little bit of accent, but you're good at your job, right? So, yeah.
Listen more.
That's
kind of my mantra. But I'm failing at it. After I have I don't know, a discussion in a boardroom or stuff like that, I'm at the end of it, I'm like, again, I talk too much.
Yeah, but listen, I'll tell you an alternative. And I had a discussion with a coworker at a certain time where I was growing a little bit frustrated, and it's also important that it's if you're frustrated or you're getting quiet and you're not participating anymore, it's also not okay to not say anything.
No, that's not extreme too.
Right?
And
I think it's you should be listening and being attentive, but it's don't just wait till it's your turn to speak, right? It's just try to okay, they said something, now it's my turn, right? That's obviously the part where
and I feel like immigrants bring so much diversity to any places.
I think it's problem solving also. I think that's one of my best skills in the job that I'm doing right now, because of my problem skill level that I am at, because of the society that I grew, because we had to think out of the box to solve the problem.
Exactly.
And here, people that are native, they are tending to go to the paved ways and do because everybody done it that way. They've been trained to do it that way. But a person like me, if I go this way and I see that I cannot do it, I can go under the table, around the table. But here the education was in a certain way.
This is the way.
And if that is in your way, the Canadian way would be okay, we need to move that. But my Romanian way would be let me see how can I go around that. Yeah. And I think that's a great
quality.
Immigrants that they can actually
they can bring they can bring all their perspective. They can bring all the ways to do things that we have never thought about it.
That's true.
And not only that mindset, but make people feel included as well. Make people feel that they belong as well, right? Because and then we go back to retention. Everything is about if we onboard an immigrant and we start to listen to their what they have to say or their perspective, they will feel belong, they will feel they belong to that place, they will feel heard, and that's very, very important for them. That's very that's very important because they feel that they are being heard, and they're not there just to fill a position or a need, or
they want to belong. Right?
They want to belong. They want to be part of the culture. They want to be part of the company as well. They're
part
not
of the success.
Right. Yep. They're not there just to fill a job. They're there because they
and they want to be part of a community, right? I think that's part of you're coming out of your community, trying to come into one, and there's that micro community within work, right?
Yeah, that's why it's very important to hire immigrants. Sorry.
Like human nature, you want to belong.
Exactly.
You're tribal.
Yeah.
You want to be part of something. You want to belong somewhere. You want to even this, wear this on you. You belong hardware.
Yeah.
So again, gives you roots at the end of the day. So
exactly.
That's what we're
and as much as you can diverse your your employees, it's just going to bring you, a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
And even for your clients outside, like your customers, they're going to feel like, oh, there's a Brazilian working in that store. I'm going to go there because they can understand me better.
Yep.
Or I don't know, Romania, whatever it is. So it's good for them as well.
Yep.
Right. In terms of like sales. And so it's not only about internal environment, it's all about, community and yes, confidence as well.
That being said, this is the only episode I didn't even do an intro, so we just freaking jumped right in. No, we'll finish it off like that. So, Emily, Nick, thank you very much. So it's been an absolute pleasure of getting to understand a little bit more about obviously the integration of immigration, but your journey, right? I think there's obviously the majority of people in Canada are Canadians by nature, and I think that we often don't hear the story of the people coming in, and I think in more recent years we've discovered like Canada's evolving and changing, but it's important to not think like just Canada's changing and it's not the same and all that. It's like, okay, how can we adapt? Because it is the reality today, and I think it's one that can be a very positive one, and we're in control of that, right?
No, 100%. And these type of conversation is so important, not only for immigrants here, but for the Canadian community, really, to understand what it takes for a family to give up their life and come to Canada, specifically to Moncton. It's just so important for them to understand, what people do to be here, like to actually.
You can imagine the situation. It's almost like a joke. In Canada, sitting around the table, it's a Romanian, a Romanian, and a Brazilian.
Exactly.
Like a setup,
Exactly. That's so true. So
that shows the diversity.
That is so
place.
true.
True.
Very diverse. Very, very diverse. My family, when they come here, they were like, "Yeah, let's eat Canadian food." I'm like, "Ooh, what's the Canadian food? Maybe poutine." Yeah, okay, let's do poutine.
Yeah, Canadian, but
I tried it again. I tried it once, and they say put some sugar on it. Yes,
I know.
I was
that's
like, it's
terrible.
It's potatoes and meat. How bad can it be? And I ate it in Moncton, so I was in the right place to have it, and I was like, no, sorry.
Well, a real kind of Canadian dish is pâté chinois, like, because that was like something that came in during when they were building the railways. And it was called pâté chinois because a lot of the workers on the railways were Chinese, and they were giving them just meat, potatoes, and corn. And that's where pâté chinois came from,
so
right?
You're
So
saying
it's like a kind of like
it's a Canadian dish is something invented by the Chinese.
No, it was for the Chinese.
For the Chinese, okay.
Oh, okay. So, let's explain that.
For underpaid labor.
Fair enough. And with that said,
okay, thank you.